Oh, it's broken, folks. Remove your airbox assembly. Make sure that your power steering reservoir is loosened. We're going to try to attack this by supporting the engine, undoing these two cradle nuts, and then we're going to drop the subframe down and then lower the engine as much as we're comfortable with in order to gain access to the top nut, which you can't see. That's the hardest part of this whole job, apparently, is that top nut. You're going to need a deep well 17. The weight of the engine is obviously in the cradle, so there's no risk here. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a little pressure on it. Now I'm gonna work on these two. Leave the other one fastened and see what you have to work with. Where are the end of the threads? How much space do I have? You know, you don't want too much weight hanging on just a couple threads. You have loosened your engine cradle or your subframe, and you have a lot of weight resting on that oil pan, but you can manipulate the engine a bit more now by bringing it down. So be real careful and watch as you lower it a little bit, and then make sure you have pressure back on it like that. A lot of this job is just thinking things through. When you push up, the force is going that way, right? That's pushing on that top nut or alleviating the pressure that's on the top nut. You don't want to push too hard, but you do want to take some of that pressure off, so that's good. Now, if you let the whole thing sag and sit in the cradle, then there's going to be a ton of pressure on that top nut, and it's going to be much harder to turn, if you think about it. That's why you have to take everything into account in order to do this correctly. I undid the 10mm bolts for the hard lines so that we have some wiggle room. I have a box wrench, 17mm, on the top nut currently, and now I need to figure out how to get the leverage. I finally broke it loose. This is the method I used. I basically did the double wrench extension trick. I have a 17mm 12 point on the top nut on the engine mount right now, and then I took this 16mm here. I made an extension out of it. That gave me the leverage I needed to break that top nut loose. And at this point, it's just a matter of turning it because now the torque is broke loose up there. I'm just demonstrating right now how I did it. It's gonna come off of there because I'm doing it one-handed. This is basically what it looks like. It's kind of an old trick. There are other tools to do this differently, but that's what it's like. You'll know that you have started to make progress because this stuff starts getting loose above the mount. Once you break it loose and you devise a way to start spinning that nut on top, you can actually drop the engine down slightly so that the subframe sags a little bit more, and that'll give you some better access. So I'm just gonna do this real carefully here, watching the subframe. Okay, so that should give me a little bit more room and then take a little bit of tension off that top nut. If you can't spin it anymore, then you know that you dropped the engine down too far. So again, it's that physics balancing act. So my finger is touching the top nut. It is now loosened to the point where I can spin it like this. And just wanted you guys to be a part of the most exciting part of this entire job, and that is getting this top nut almost off. Come on. Oh yeah, there we go. I'm gonna go up with this thing, nice and slow. Okay, we're getting close to being topped out again, so let's see if I have enough room. Looks like the only way to get it out is back here by pulling down on those hard lines. I know it might be hard to see. Here we go. Whew. There she is. Actually, the mount looks like it's in pretty good condition. I don't see any major tears or anything else. This is the passenger side mount, and then this would be the Megan Racing matching mount that I'm going to install, and this would be the driver's side. You can see there is a difference on this top plate. You know, hopefully you'll look at that, but this is the passenger side one. Of course, you're going to have this little thing here and then a heat shield type deal that will go over this. Now, looking at this mount, I don't see any major tears or issues. It is significantly heavier. I'd say twice the weight of the Megan Racing, if anyone cares. That might be because these have, I think, hydraulic fluid inside of them, and these don't. I'm just comparing these Megan mounts. And then this little heat shield would go over it right there. These stiffer mounts aren't gonna fit in like the old ones did. So you're gonna actually have to raise up your engine just a little bit higher in order to make the clearance for the stiffer mounts. So don't maximize your jack when you're taking the old one out, because you're gonna need some extra room. Once you make the room to get your new mount in, plus the, I'll call them top plates and the heat shield, you're gonna have to be real careful, because when you lower this thing down, you've gotta make sure that that hole is gonna go right through. So there's a couple tricks that you could do. You could push that up in there and tighten the top nut on it and then lower it down to the subframe. You can see that this thing doesn't rest in the upright position. It just rests towards the engine block. I pushed the mount up, fastened the top nut first, made sure the plate and this mount bracket were aligned to the pin. And then you want to hand tighten that as much as you can. And next, we're going to try to get those through the subframe holes as I lower the engine down. Run these subframe fasteners up so that it starts to pull itself towards the engine mount. That is another way you could do this. I'll go ahead and put it on a low setting. There we go, it's through. And tightening the lowers. And I can't tell you what the torque value is on this top nut, and it wouldn't really matter because you're not gonna be able to get a torque wrench on there. And so I would say is wrench that sucker on as tight as you can. Hopefully you never have to do this job again. So I'm hitting a hammer to torque this down. I do see some oil residue on top, but that could be something that came down from the engine. Anyway, it's in pretty good condition, but it certainly is, it's twice as heavy as the Megan mount, and it's much more pliable. And now we go to the driver's side, which allegedly is easier. And the process begins once again on the driver's side. Going after the top nut first, even though I have already taken out these two previously, just because it didn't matter at the time. I also have loosened the subframe bolts previously. So at this point, it's the top nut. I'm gonna go after that, and this should be easier here on the driver's side. On this side, it was as simple as getting the box wrench up on the top nut in the right position and breaking it loose, and it worked. I just, got some leverage with my arms and pulled this way, and it loosened. Oh, it's broken, folks. I knew I should do this. I'm actually really glad to see that, because I felt like I was doing this for nothing. Take the pieces out. That's great. Well, that makes it easier to get out if the thing is busted. And now I have threads through the top nut area, and I can get that top nut threaded on there. And I found that using a box wrench with the 12 point seems to be the best method, just like when it was taken off and removed. This motor mount change is unreal. I cannot believe the difference it has made in my car. There is no more clutch chatter. When I did my manual swap, it chattered a lot, and I thought, it must just be the light and flywheel or how I'm driving it or whatever. It's completely eliminated the clutch chatter. That motor mount on the driver's side was definitely causing a lot of issues with that motor torquing and I guess moving like that. And that's translated all the way back into my manual swap. What a difference. If you're over 90,000 miles and you're not sure if those motor mounts have been done, absolutely do them. It is so worth it. If you want to run a test, you can hold your brake down and give it some gas and watch the engine. And if the engine is shifting counterclockwise facing the vehicle quite a bit, you know that this driver's side mount is probably shot. Of course, I recommend to replace them both. There's quite a few options out there actually. I have Megan Racing that went into mine. You can go OEM, you can go aftermarket. There's a number of aftermarket places that offer 1UZ engine mounts that you can get. If this video helped you out, hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment, and be sure to subscribe. See you on the next episode.